I never knew a wrong number could lead to love. His billion-dollar promise changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as the phone rang, the sound slicing through the air like a knife. I looked down. Unknown number. Curiosity tugged at me. I answered. Hello? Is this Ivy? A deep, smooth voice flowed into my ear. It was rich, like dark chocolate, but with an edge that sent a shiver down my spine. Yes, but I think you have the wrong number. My voice trembled. He laughed softly, and my chest tightened. How can you be so sure? Maybe fate is just twisted enough to make a mistake. Fate. The word hung in the air, thick and sugary. My mind raced. I was sitting alone in my tiny apartment, the smell of burnt toast still lingering from breakfast. I had just turned 30, feeling the weight of expectations pressing down on me. My family believed I'd be married by now, perhaps with a dog, or at least a cat. Instead, I was dodging bills and eating cereal for dinner. Your fate must be more interesting than mine, I said, half joking, trying to shake off the strange connection I felt. Tell me about it, he replied, and for a moment, the world outside vanished. I could hear the faint hum of a city alive with dreams. Keep the door open. Maybe it'll surprise you someday. His words danced around me, leaving a tingling sensation on my skin. Who was this man? The thrill of the mystery wrapped around me like a warm blanket. What if he was dangerous? What if he was the answer to all my dreams? But life had a way of crushing fragile hopes. I hung up, clutching the phone tightly, my breath quickening. I couldn't shake the feeling of something catastrophic waiting right outside the door. A week passed, the call fading to a whisper, but I kept replaying it in my mind, like a song I couldn't forget. That he called again, the same number appearing on my screen, my heart thudding in my chest like a taiko drum. It was a bold move, a thrill I didn't know I needed. What if I picked up? What if he had the billion-dollar promise just waiting to change everything? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The storm rumbled in the distance as I stood by the window, looking out at the dark, churning clouds that seemed to mirror my own inner turmoil. The tension from the last call still clung to me like the humidity in the air. I had spent the past few days grappling with both excitement and fear, caught between the potential for something extraordinary and my own deeply rooted apprehensions. I was alive with anticipation, yet something within me was played a somber tune of self-doubt. The phone buzzed again, jolting me from my thoughts. My heart leapt. Could it be him? I rushed to grab it, but my excitement faltered when I saw the familiar unknown number flash on the screen. Mustering every ounce of courage, I pressed the answer button, my voice steadying itself against the tide of anxiety. Hello, Ivy, it's me. His voice, smooth and vibrant, poured warmth over me like the sun breaking through after a rainstorm. Did I catch you at a bad time? No, not at all, I replied, surprised at how easily the lie slipped from my lips. Just looking at the weather. It's looking pretty grim out there. Is that so? He chuckled, the sound dancing through the air and wrapping around my heart. The forecast shows a clearing later. A fresh start, perhaps. That I felt something turn in my chest, an ache mixed with longing. His easy laughter washed away the heaviness of my own thoughts, if only for a moment. Yeah, maybe even a rainbow, I replied, allowing myself to get swept up in the dream he conjured. What's been on your mind? He asked, his tone shifting into something softer, more sincere. I hesitated. I couldn't bring myself to divulge the wreckage of my realities, the loneliness, the incessant pressure from my family to find stability, the numbing routine of life that felt unbearable at times. "Oh, just work, you know, trying to stay afloat." He was silent for a moment, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in his mind. "You know, Ivy, it doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes we need a jolt, a reminder that we deserve more than just survival." That I swallowed hard, the weight of his words heavy in the air. Relief mingled with the fear of what reaching for more could mean. And how would that happen? "If I could just wish it away, I would." "Let me help you," he replied, and though it was just another gentle suggestion, it brimmed with promise. "What if we met? Just coffee, just a talk." Panic surged, colliding with the warmth that had radiated throughout my chest. I don't know if that's a good idea. We could meet in a public place, among throngs of others. Just a conversation between two people who found themselves on a strange journey together. The offer shimmered brightly within the grayness of my doubts. Maybe it was impulsive and perhaps dangerous, but a flicker of hope ignited, whispering that the universe was nudging me towards something greater. "Okay," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper, as if saying it aloud could shatter the very essence of the moment. "Tomorrow? Perfect. I promise it will be worth it, Ivy." We exchanged fleeting pleasantries before I hung up, breathless and elated. I took a moment, resting my hand against the windowsill, and watched as the first drops of rain began to fall, each one creating little pools of opportunity on the pavement below. The next day came with a ceaseless torrent of anticipation. I chose a cafe that brimmed with warmth and laughter, and as I stepped inside, the smell of coffee enveloped me like an embrace. My heart, a riot of hope and nervousness, pounded heavily. I arrived early, watching people come and go, but as the minutes passed, my confidence began to waver. What if he didn't show? What if this was all just a cruel joke? Then, he appeared, walking through the door with an easy confidence that made my heart skip. He was even more compelling in person, and I felt myself catch my breath. His eyes locked onto mine, igniting a spark that sent shivers of excitement through me. "Sorry I'm late," he said, as he settled across from me, his smile lighting up the dim corners of my worries. "I got caught up in the traffic of life." We chatted, each word weaving a tighter bond that began dissolving the walls I had carefully built around my heart. He was kind, perceptive, and genuinely interested in my dreams and fears. Yet, with each passing moment, a nagging doubt lingered in the background. Was I really worthy of this? Just as the weight of my insecurity threatened to choke me, he leaned in closer, his expression serious. "Tell me, what's the most reckless thing you've ever done?" My heart raced, the loaded question heavy in the air. I could feel the rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins, blending fear with the thrill of risk. And that's when the cafe door swung open again, a gust of cold air rushing in, an uninvited chill interrupting our moment. A man stepped inside, drenched from the rain, his eyes scanning the room. Recognition surged through me as I realized he was someone from my Patan ex-boyfriend I'd tried so hard to forget. I felt the color drain from my face as he approached, and time slowed, every heartbeat drumming loudly in my ears. The conversation halted, and suddenly, I was trapped between two worlds, one that held the promise of new beginnings and one that anchored me to memories I fought so hard to escape. As he drew closer, I searched for the right words, but found only silence against the chaos swirling in my heart. The rain drummed against the cafe window in a chaotic symphony, mirroring my mind. I glanced at him, his vibrant eyes now dulled with confusion as they shifted between me and the intruder standing just a few steps away, soaking up the atmosphere as if he belonged here. My ex, the ghost of a relationship that had loomed large over my life, was now unceremoniously brought back into the light. "Ivy?" he ventured, surprise etched across his face, his voice the remnants of the boy I once knew. I could feel my heart thundering against my ribs, a cacophony of emotions stirring within me. Shame, anger, and fear collided in a way that threatened to consume me. I turned back to my companion, desperately trying to convey with my eyes what words failed to express, a plea for understanding, for support. "I didn't expect to see you here," I managed to stammer, trying to summon the strength to dig my heels into the present moment rather than retreat back to the shadows of my past. His expression softened, yet confusion lingered. "Is everything okay?" My ex was now close enough to smell his cologne, a scent I once found comforting but now felt suffocating. That my gaze drifted back to him, the stranger who had become a source of solace just moments before. The question simmered in the air between us, heavy with implications. Did I retreat into the safety of old wounds, or did I choose the unknown, which promised something new and bright? "I don't want to interrupt," my ex said, his voice low as he focused on the other man perched across from me. "I just came in to escape the rain." His brow furrowed, and I caught the flicker of jealousy flash across my date's face, a protective instinct sparking to life. It both thrilled and terrified me. I could feel the air thickening, sweet anticipation mixing with the bitter taste of unresolved history. "That I can't believe you're here," my ex continued, moving forward with a casual confidence. "I've missed you." I fought back the urge to recoil, memories of late-night arguments and whispered regrets threatening to claw their way to my lips. "You don't get to say that," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, yet I was surprised by its steadiness. "Not after everything that happened. What do you mean? You think I wanted it to end like that?" His brows knit together, an old wound reopening between us. "You left, for good reason," I shot back, feeling the familiar fire rising in me. My memories flickered like a projector. Disillusionment, betrayal, the way love had twisted into something painful. "Right, because running away from your problems works so well," he retorted, his dismissive tone igniting a cold rage within me, the barriers I had fought so hard to erect crumbling under the pressure. Suddenly, the other man, me unexpected savior, interjected, voicing an unexpected strength. "Hey, man, maybe this isn't the best time." I turned to him, uncertainty curling in my stomach, unsure if this new tension was one I wanted in my life. But the briefest flicker of hope ignited as he offered me a soft smile, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone in this moment. "Who the hell are you?" My ex snapped, bristling with competitive energy, as if he felt his hold on me threatened by this stranger's mere presence. "Someone who believes Ivy deserves to make her own choices." The firm but gentle response left no room for argument, gently pushing the wave of conflict back a little faster. The unexpected support fortified my resolve, pushing me to stand tall amidst the chaos. "I need to figure things out on my own," I said, my gaze shifting between the two men, my heart torn between the ache for familiarity and the thrilling unknown. For a moment, silence reigned, punctuated by the cracking of thunder outside, a reminder of the storm both within and beyond. I could feel the weight of all that was left unsaid hanging in the air, the choice looming over me like a heavy cloud. "Are you serious about him, Ivy?" My ex suddenly pressed, his voice cutting through the uncertainty. "Are you really going to throw away what we had for someone you barely know?" "I'm not throwing anything away," I replied, the fire in my belly igniting into a blaze. "I'm trying to choose a future that reflects who I want to be." "Then this is a terrible mistake," he insisted, his tone incredulous, his stubbornness wrapped in a desperate need to pull me back into the past. "Maybe the mistake is believing him still the same person I was," I shot back, feeling powerful in declaring my own identity, fractured yet resilient. "Wait," the stranger across from me interrupted again, his expression shifting from fierce to concerned. "Ivy, are you really okay?" His genuine concern sent a thrill through me, like a beacon of warmth amidst the cold chaos. Don't know," I admitted, doubt creeping back in like a shadow. "But I think I need to choose what's next for myself." As realization dawned, and I stood at this precipice, two forks in the road laid before me. I felt a tremble of panic surge within my chest. My heart ached, drowning in uncertainty. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the door swung open again, a rush of wind and rain blowing through the entrance momentarily, and in the midst of it stood a woman with glasses and wild, curly hair, clutching a crumpled letter. "Ivy, you need to see this," she breathed, clearly frantic, holding the letter close to her chest. The room fell silent as her eyes darted nervously between me and the two men. What could possibly be so urgent? An involuntary knot twisted in my stomach, anticipation curling into anxiety. The moment hung in the air, a single breath before the storm would unleash the truth I wasn't fully prepared to face. My choices, the weight of my past, and the trajectory of my future all hung in the balance as I faced her. "With this, everything changes," she said, and as she stepped forward into the crowded cafe, a part of me braced for the tremors of revelation, knowing I had just left the safety of the familiar and was now standing on the edge of the unknown. The cafe calmed, the din of murmured conversations fading into the background as the woman's presence enveloped the space, drawing all attention toward her crumpled letter. I felt my heart thud erratically against my chest, a dissonant drumbeat punctuating the tension in the air. Her wide eyes, brimming with urgency, held a glimmer of something I couldn't quite discern: fear? Hope? "Ivy, please," she hesitated, the letter trembling in her grip. "It's about your father." My breath hitched in my throat. My father. The connotation was heavier than the dark clouds swirling outside. It felt like opening an old wound, one I had worked so hard to stitch shut. "What about him?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. The stranger across the table shifted awkwardly, the protective veneer momentarily flickering under the unexpected emotional weight. My ex's brows furrowed deeper, caught between his desire to interject and the realization of the gravity of what this woman was implying. "This letter, it came for you. It was supposed to be delivered weeks ago," but she hesitated again, her cheeks flushing with an embarrassment that somehow made me like her more in that moment. "But I forgot it back at the office. I just found it today. Just tell me what it says," I urged, the urgency rising in my throat, a tight coil of anxiety wrapping around my chest. With a tentative breath, she smoothed out the letter with shaking hands. "It's from a law firm. It says there's been a redevelopment project in the works since last year. Your father's estate is apparently connected to it, and there might be some assets he didn't tell you about." A cold wave rushed through me, an icy touch of disbelief and confusion. "Assets?" I repeated. My mind raced to reconstruct the fragmented image of my father, a man who had been a ghost for the majority of my life, a shadow I could never quite grasp. The thought of him leaving something material behind felt grotesque, almost a betrayal in its own way. "I thought you should know," she said, her voice strained but earnest. "If you want to pursue it, you might need a lawyer, or maybe even to reclaim the property." I glanced back at the stranger across the table, his eyes wide with concern, but I could see the threads of surprise weaving through his own expression. My ex leaned in, subtlety forgotten. "What does that even mean, Ivy? Are you seriously going to look into this? After everything?" "I don't know," I shot back, my voice a tangled mix of anger and desperation spilling over. "I need time to think, to understand what it all means." The truth was a bruising reminder of how little I truly knew about my family, how much had been withheld from me. It was a tempest of emotion swelling within, threads unraveling from the very fabric of my identity. The woman took a small step closer, her eyes reflecting compassion. "You deserve to know the truth, Ivy. This could change everything. It could even help." "Help what?" I interrupted. My chest felt constricted, the weight of potential revelations pressing down like a heavy stone. "Help what, exactly? Bring back a man I barely knew? What happens if I dig? What if it leads me to discover things that I'm not prepared to handle? Isn't that better than living in the dark?" She urged gently, her voice steady and warm. "You have a chance to understand who you are, and maybe even to confront those past hurts." Unraveled threads of memory tightened around me, whispers from my childhood drifting back, echoes filled with secrets, neglect, and confusion. The thought of unraveling such complicated layers sent a shiver down my spine. "We're all here for you, Ivy," the stranger said softly, his gaze steady and sincere. "Whether you choose to find this out or not, you're not alone in this." But I felt intensely alone, teetering on the precipice between my past and an uncertain future I had barely begun to carve out. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the moment wash over me. Cacophony of rain, the assortment of voices, and the thumping heart of a decision pressing against my ribs. Then, the weight of the letter heavy in front of me pulled my gaze back. "What if confronting this changes everything?" I murmured, looking between the familiar and the unknown, the love-hate relationship with my past. In that instant, I felt time warp, an invisible tether stretching between us and the pulsating danger of revelation. Suddenly, it wasn't just a letter, it was a gateway, an invitation to lay claim to my own narrative. The weight of choices loomed ever larger, a collection of lives left untold just beyond the horizon, and my voice trembled as uncertainty broke free. Maybe I need to know what this leads to. But I can't guarantee I'll like what I find. But as I hung in the balance between comfort and curiosity, the stranger smiled softly, lifting the weight of fear little by little. The warmth of his belief whispered something else: hope. Before I could grasp that flicker of light, I heard the unmistakable sound of a phone ringing, muffled yet insistent. My ex's phone. He fumbled, pulling it from his pocket, but the look on his face shifted from annoyance to horror as he answered. "Dad?" No, his voice dropped into a breathless panic, and I could see the blood drain from his face. "What is it?" I asked, my stomach twisting with apprehension, my earlier resolve teetering precariously on the edge. His gaze met mine, eyes wide, and in that moment, the world seemed to freeze. I think something's happened. You were right, you need to figure this out now." And then the cafe trembled with the blaring sound of an emergency siren outside, echoing the impending storm as I braced myself for what lay ahead, caught in a web of unresolved pasts and looming unknowns. The sirens shrieked a haunting melody that threaded through the air, vibrating with urgency. Nervous energy pulsed in my fingertips as I felt the weight of the raw emotions swirling in the cafe. The warm confines that had offered solace moments before transformed into a pressure chamber filled with heavy breaths and uncertain futures. "Can you hear it?" My ex's voice, frantic and trembling, yanked me from my spiraling thoughts. I turned to meet his gaze, filled with worry that sent shivers up my spine. It wasn't just the sirens, it was the flicker of fear looming over us all that ignited the room like dry kindling to a spark. "That I know it's bad," I whispered, more to myself than to him, my mind racing. Would the unraveling of my past lead to even more heartache, or was there an ember waiting to be fanned into something brighter? The woman, still lingering at the edges of our tension, reached out hesitantly, her presence a gentle balm against the rising tide of anxiety. "Ivy, whatever happens, you're not alone. We'll figure this out together." Her words were a fragile thread, but they held a promise that felt tender against the storm of my emotions. "Together," I echoed, the notion barely forming a shape in my overwhelmed mind. I needed that hope, it was a flickering candle in the night. Suddenly, my ex pulled away from the table and shot a glance at the entrance. "I'm going to step outside to take the call," he said, his voice strained yet searching for control. I need to understand what's happening." Wait, I reached for him instinctively, but he had already vanished through the cafe door, the sound of the sirens drowning out any protests I might have offered. Staring at the now emptied chair, I felt a surge of unease. It felt wrong, his retreat into the unknown, leaving me tangled in this web alone. My heart drummed loudly against my ribcage as if echoing the fear of what was yet to come. "That was abrupt," the woman said softly, her eyes fixed on the door. "He must be worried." "Yes," I nodded, more to convince myself than her. "But there's more to it, isn't there?" "There always is." My thoughts spiraled back to the letter, the connection to my father, the unresolved questions that lay like dormant shadows. As if sensing my turmoil, the woman offered a small, hesitant smile. "You know, sometimes the most surprising truths emerge from shadows. It's like you're being given a chance to rewrite your story. You don't have to let the past dictate your future, Ivy." With every word she spoke, the walls I had painstakingly built around my heart felt like they were crumbling. The fear still rushed in, whispering warnings, but there was something in her sincerity, a reminder that hope could bloom even in the most barren landscapes. "What if I find something I'm not ready for?" I said, the question hanging heavy in the air. She placed the letter gently in front of me, as if gifting me a key to unlock the chains from my past. "Then you confront it. You choose how it defines you, not the other way around." The depth in her voice resonated, and I found myself considering the possibilities, each breath laden with potential. But just as I began to lean into the warmth of that flicker, a dark shadow loomed. My ex burst back through the door, his face a tableau of fear and clarity, and every bit of warmth from the moment before drained, leaving me chilled. What happened? I asked, my heart racing once more. He met my gaze, the fright twisting in his eyes deepening. It's my dad. He's had a heart attack. They've taken him to the hospital. The world around me collapsed inwards, the weight of his words landing like a leaden anchor. My fingers grappled with the table's edge, trying to ground myself in the chaos. My mind raced back to the conversations we had shared about family, the things left unsaid between us. Suddenly, the weight of the unknown surged at the surface, dark corners of hurt and the unresolved rift between us. That I am sorry, I blurted, tears prickling at the edges of my eyes, wishing I could reach out and somehow erase his pain. It's not your fault, he replied, his tone detached as if he were living in a realm separate from me. I had to call my sister. I don't know what to do. Should we go to the hospital? I asked, my chest tight with empathy and an urge to shield him from the hurt looming over us both. He hesitated, the vulnerability of the moment clawing at the seam, holding his composure. No, I think I need to handle this on my own. If things get worse, I'll call you. A silence heavy with unspoken words unfurled between us, stitching threads of pain into the air. I reached out, not wanting him to drift away, but he stepped back, needing the distance, perhaps the solitude, to grapple with the impending grief of losing his father. I am here if you need me, I murmured, but the weight of my voice felt hopelessly small against the volume of the moment. He nodded, conflicted, before turning toward the door. I'll keep you posted. And with that, he left again, and the cafe, with its soft murmurings and coffee-scented air, felt more labyrinthine than ever. Are you okay? The woman's voice pulled me back from the edge of despair. No. Not really, I admitted, collapsing into the chair, my mind a tempest of confusion and fear. My heart ached for my ex, for the potential of loss, and for the unanswered questions that had now multiplied like a growing vine. But as hard as it was, a flicker of something ignited deep within, a desire to keep pushing forward, to understand the things left unsaid. Just as my resolve began fueling a new path, a loud crash echoed from outside, a cascade of shattering glass that set my heart racing once more. What now? I gasped, my instincts heightened. The cafe patrons turned, whispers rising in pitch as I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. It felt as if all the threads connecting our lives were unraveling in unison, and in that moment of collective shock, I realized that perhaps the only true certainty is that change lurks around every corner. And then, in a heartbeat, I understood if everything could shift so dramatically so fast, then perhaps I could too. I glanced back at the crumpled letter, outweighed by the weight of my own heart and the threads of fate pulling us all together, waiting for me to choose. But as the chaos outside continued to unfold, I felt the thick, cold tendrils of anxiety wrap around me, choking off the last fragile hints of hope, and I paused, the world blurring again into an uncertain haze, clutching the possibility that any moment could change everything once more. The chaos outside intensified, the shocking crash followed by shouts and sirens lending a surreal feel to the moment. The cafe's calm facade shattered as patrons began to murmur anxiously, checking their phones, exchanging worried glances. Amidst the turmoil, I stood frozen, teetering on the edge of dread and an overwhelming urge to run toward the sound. Maybe it's just a car accident, the woman beside me suggested, but her voice shook, giving away her own uncertainty. Let's hope no one was hurt. I nodded numbly, but my insides twisted at the thought of any kind of injury sparking in the chaos of an ordinary day. My thoughts swung back to the letter, clenching my fingers, a reminder that hidden truths could erupt and change lives in an instant. As the sounds grew more frantic outside, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the cafe's window, my own face a mask of mounting fear. How long could I escape my tangled past while the present loomed ominously, shattering the bubble I had tried to inflate? Opening the crumpled letter on the table, I let my eyes dance over the jagged lines of my father's handwriting, searching for any semblance of reassurance, but all I found was an awkward silence that felt almost mocking. You don't have to figure everything out right now, the woman said softly, her hand reaching out to lightly touch mine, grounding me in the moment. Right, I fumbled, trying to muster a smile and hoping my heart didn't betray me with the pounding against my ribs. "Sorry, I'm just overwhelmed. And then there's my ex and this letter, I just don't know what to feel." Her gaze softened, and I could see a reservoir of empathy behind her eyes. "It's okay to feel lost. Sometimes uncertainty leads to the most important discoveries. You have to trust that even in chaos, kindness and connection can bloom." The words resonated deep within, but the unfolding events outside felt like a storm threatening to wash away any glimmer of hope. Just as I was about to respond, the cafe's door swung open, and a man stumbled in, his face pale and slick with sweat, his clothes stained, the veneer of control slipping away with every frantic breath. "Anyone here? Help!" he gasped, his voice thick with panic. Every head in the cafe turned, the room collectively holding its breath as the man's presence sent ripples of concern. "What happened?" A barista approached hesitantly, but the man pointed outside, urgency clawing at his throat. "There was an accident at the corner. Several people." He swayed slightly, and someone shouted for water, while others scrambled for their coats. My heart raced. I wanted to run, to see, but my legs felt rooted to the floor. Would my ex be okay? Was this connected to the chaos teeming up outside? I squeezed the edge of the table tighter, a breath escaping my lips that felt far from ready to confront more pain. "Maybe we can help," the woman beside me said, her voice a soothing whisper that reached the core of my fear. "I think they might need support, and maybe now is the moment you take that leap and discover what is waiting for you." Together, I echoed her words from earlier, reminding myself of the fragile balm of hope she offered me. "You're right." As I hesitated for only a heartbeat longer, the sense of urgency surged through me like an electric shock. "Let's go," I called, my voice breaking through the fog of uncertainty. With one last glance at the letter, I slid it into my pocket, not ready to confront the past in this moment, determined instead to meet the present. We stepped through the door into the chaos, my heart pounding as we wound through the scattering crowd. I could hardly process it all, the screeching of sirens mixed with frantic voices, calls for help and people reaching for their loved ones enveloping me in a horrific tapestry of anguish. As we neared the commotion, a familiar figure emerged from the corner of my eye. It was my ex, his face smeared with worry, rushing toward the scene. My heart felt like it might break as I caught a glimpse of pure, raw emotion on his face. He hadn't been able to stay away, and yet the weight of our unsettled words loomed so heavy between us. "Ivy." His voice pierced through the tumult, and for a split second, everything else faded away. I needed to reach him, to offer solace in the storm, but just as quickly, a loud crack echoed through the air, another sound resembling breaking glass, followed by terrified screams moments later. My blood ran cold, instinct screaming at me to move, to protect, but I stood frozen. The crowd scattered, a frenzy born of primal fear. Time slowed as I turned, pondering an impulse versus standing firm in the face of chaos. Would what I found be answers to my cauldron of questions, or simply deeper layers of pain? And as I met his gaze once more, a mixture of desperation and something else, an electrifying jolt ignited between us, a collision of our fractured past clawing against an uncertain future. I reached toward him, he reached toward me, but just before our fingers interlocked, a shadowed figure surged into the fray, barreling through the heartbreak, a dreadful urgency etched on their face. I couldn't see who it was, but a presentiment stirred in my gut. This would change everything. As my ex opened his mouth to yell a warning, I braced for whatever consequence loomed ahead, and just like that, my heart sank deeper into uncertainty while the world outside swirled chaotically into a haze of impending change. The world seemed to spin in slow motion as I watched the fleeting second stretch into infinity, my heart pounding erratically in my chest. The figure pushing its way through the fray was shrouded in shadows, but a wild intuition whispered that I shouldn't ignore this moment. It felt monumental, weighted with the fragility of a paper-thin veil separating me from all my uncertainties. The excruciating tension in the air was punctuated by another terrified cry. A woman had fallen amid the chaos, clutching her leg while people surged past her, oblivious to her plight. A rush of empathy flooded through me, overriding my fears and doubts. "Help her!" I shouted instinctively, breaking free from the crowd's grasp. I took a few steps toward the woman, but within seconds, a terrible crash echoed as metal met flesh. A car had careened off course, skidding dangerously close to me, propelled by the frantic energy swirling around. "Get back!" my ex shouted, grabbing my arm just as the crowd recoiled. With a forceful tug, he pulled me away from the looming danger, and I stumbled into him. My body reacted instinctively, and without thinking, I clasped his hand, an anchor amidst the tempest of turmoil surrounding us. "Are you okay?" he asked urgently, his grip fierce and protective. His eyes were mottled with concern and a small, flickering flicker of something unuttered, a clash of feelings that surged beneath the surface despite the upheaval around us. Yes, but we need to help," I murmured, stating the obvious even as adrenaline surged through my veins. The woman still lay helplessly on the ground, and my conscience nagged at me. In that moment, small acts of kindness were needed more than ever. Just as we were about to reach the woman, the shadowed figure emerged fully into the light. It was a man with a furious determination painted across his features. A familiar uncertainty clawed at the back of my mind. As he neared us, recognition struck like lightning. It was Alex, my greatest fear personified in flesh and bone, my father's business partner. His eyes locked with mine, swirling with unsaid words, and the realization washed over me like a chilling wave. "Ivy, stay back," he commanded under his breath, a hint of desperation stemming from his insistent tone. "You don't understand." "Understand what?" I snapped, pulling my hand away from my ex's grasp, feeling every ounce of solid ground I possessed waver. The kindness I briefly cherished felt snatched away by an engulfing dread. "Everything's gone wrong," Alex gasped, breathless, his urgency mounting in the panic-stricken air. "Someone's been sabotaging the merger. Dangers everywhere. Is it connected to?" I started, but before I could voice the questions gnawing at me, the moment was interrupted by a loud shriek and the chaos heightened again, rattling me to my core. "We need to get to safety," my ex interjected, his voice far more urgent. "You need to leave now, Ivy." The word stung, because deep down, I already felt the promise of that handwritten letter fragmenting into dust. It felt as if the answers I had yearned for were being suffocated by layers of chaos, making me question everything I had fought for. "No," I stated firmly, pulses of defiance coursing through me. "I'm not going to hide. I can't." My voice trembled, grappling with the weight of invisible threads tying me to my past. "Right now isn't the time to confront your demons," he shouted back, desperation edging into his voice. His eyes softened momentarily, battling their way through concern. "Ivy, I don't want to lose you among the confusion." I turned toward Alex, who stood a mere breath away, his expression etched with urgency. "You need to cooperate, Ivy. There are bigger things at stake than your feelings." Each word was a blade hidden within the layers of his plea, cutting deeper than I could fathom. Before I could respond, another series of sirens blared, cautioning those nearby to flee. The ground trembled as more vehicles sped toward the disarray. The scene morphed into a feline frenzy, each heartbeat directed toward collective survival rather than introspection. A flurry of movement surrounded us, people typing on their phones, silhouetted figures on the verge of action. A glimpse of humanity amidst disaster, veering toward hope to help instead of despair at what was lost. Just as my mind felt ready to fracture, the unexpected happened. A teenage boy with a splattered shirt appeared out of nowhere, offering a small first aid kit with shaking hands. "I can help," he cried, determination shining through the fear in his eyes. "Where did you come from?" I questioned, my heart swelling with gratitude. Somehow, amidst the chaos, this boy's bravery ignited something inside me. But just as the swell of hope began to fill the gaping chasm, Alex's eyes hardened again, as if fiercely protective of me amidst the tenderness swelling from this act of kindness. "Get out of the way," he shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of me. "We don't know if anyone is safe. You have to trust me." The heaviness in my chest deepened as I glanced back at my ex, who was caught between joining me and following Alex's lead. The world spiraled and tightened, dignity and instinct at war, as my heart raced between paths unchosen and new hurts looming ever closer. Every instinct begged me to linger in this moment, with whispers and forgotten truths hovering tantalizingly close, but then I heard a voice that shifted everything. "Ivy, don't you see? It's not about the past anymore," the boy said with an earnestness in his eyes that silenced the raging storm within me. "It's about what you choose to do now." As those words struck a profound chord, I felt another deeper truth reveal itself, drawing me closer to what truly mattered. But just then, an explosion echoed, a spark of flame darting into the air, shattering whatever resolve adorned that moment. Everything I knew, the fragile connections I fought to understand, hung on the precipice of a tumultuous brink, ready to be engulfed by the chaos unfurling around me. Would I cling to the past or leap forward into the daunting unknown? And as the echoes of confusion loomed in, I realized I was standing on the threshold of an emotional avalanche, too close to escaping change, but still desperately holding on to hope, poised to grasp the reckoning that lay ahead. The ground trembled beneath me as the chaos raged on, a whirlwind of sound and emotion brimming with uncertainty. The explosion had transformed the atmosphere, igniting everyone's primal instincts. Panic surged, painting the faces around me with palpable fear, yet in that storm of chaos, I stood frozen, caught between worlds. "Ivy, move!" My ex shouted, his voice slicing through the haze, yet I felt disconnected from the effort behind his call. My heart thudded erratically, focusing not on danger but the soft echo of the boy's words. The idea that choice was still in my hands lingered like a gentle pulse against the backdrop of terror. Without fully understanding why, I stepped forward, intertwining vulnerability and resolve. "I have to know," I murmured, not entirely to myself. My breath quickened with each revelation thrumming through me, swirling into clarity even in the disarray. I couldn't let fear paralyze the choices before me. An ethereal moment grabbed hold of my soul, and I met Alex's eyes, those darkened pools of uncertainty, seeking understanding. "What do we do? Tell me," I implored. His presence felt like a paradox, representative of a world riddled with danger, yet simultaneously a shiver of connection sparked what lingered deep within. "Ivy, there's a pattern to this chaos, a danger more significant than we understand." His voice lowered, anime-focused yet urgent, almost intimate. "We can't let whatever's been done to the merger compromise everything we know." "Let me." But before he could finish, a girl nearby burst into tears, crumpling to the ground as sirens wailed louder and louder, merging with the palpable tension suffusing the atmosphere. My heart constricted seeing her despair. Something within me ignited. We couldn't lose ourselves in desolation. "Help!" another voice cried, and instinctively, I looked over to see a man trying to lift debris off a young child, trapped beneath it. Each sound, each plea resonated like a deafening gong within my heart, compelling me to act. I reached over and took the boy with the first aid kit by the shoulders, grounding him in urgency. You help with the woman. Get her settled while I go help the others." The young boy nodded, steeling his resolve, that flicker of courage reigniting my own. As I dashed toward the panicking crowd of people who surged like waves against the tide, I caught a glimpse of my ex, whose face mirrored confusion laced with attempts at control. I turned back to Alex, whose focus was sharp as he gestured toward the remnants of debris. "This way," he called, and I followed instinctively, knowing he possessed a quiet clarity amidst the bedlam. Together, we maneuvered the crumbling wreckage, each touch dulled by uncertainty, fear dancing at the edges of our resolve. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed, and we barely ducked as a chunk of concrete fell away, revealing a hidden passage just beyond the chaos. "We need to get people to safety." Alex's insistence was layered with determination, but his tone was different. It hinted at something more, something buried beneath the surface. Before I had time to respond, a flash of memory grasped me. I recalled sitting across a table from him in a boardroom months prior, where tension draped across every word between us. How easily we danced on the edges of understanding. But was it just business then, Ivy? A voice broke through suddenly, drawing my attention back to the present. My ex was fighting his way towards us, his features stark with concern as he gestured toward the remnants of the explosion. "We need to get out. We can't. I'm not leaving." I shot back, the heat rushing over me as defiance clashed against fear. "Not now. Not while there's someone who needs help. The words hung between us, stark against the backdrop of havoc swirling around us amid shouts and cries. Beneath the din, my heart pounded to the rhythm of undeniable truth. I couldn't turn away. Not again. My heart, I breathed, gazing at Alex. You know more than you're letting on. Something deeper lies beneath this chaos. His eyes darkened, and a weight of understanding passed between us. Horrifying yet exhilarating. The truth will change everything, he murmured, leaning closer, yet glancing toward the tumult. He was caught in the cadence of his urgency, a testament to our intertwined fates. Before I could process his words, another explosion rattled the ground, and a surge of debris hurtled toward us. My instincts weaved through horror as I flung myself against Alex, propelling us both out of harm's way. That's it. My ex yelled, eyes blazing, urgency flaring. He resisted pushing me back, but the determination in my heart pressed deeper. You must listen. In the fading echoes of turmoil, amidst a world fragmenting around us, I felt the weight of choice bear down. As the smoke swirled around us, a shocking realization struck me: very decision held the power to upend everything I thought I knew. And as sirens blared, announcing the reignition of chaos, the ground ruptured below, cracking wide open. I stumbled, heart racing, before finding solid ground alongside two profoundly different yet unyielding men. But just as clarity emerged, darkness threatened again. The sudden illumination of lights washed over us from two opposing factions, each shining with distinct intentions. Choice loomed before me with fervent urgency as I was left standing on the precipice of fate. My next steps could either unravel everything or bind our fates together at last. Would I embrace the truth hidden in chaos, or retreat into the security of the past that was slowly withering away? In that moment, as I clutched the pieces of my fragmented heart, I was jolted by understanding I had become part of a story larger than myself, and the next chapter lay just beyond that treacherous call to action. The sudden crashes of debris and the acrid scent of smoke draped heavily over us as I struggled to catch my breath. My heart raced, pounding against the walls of my chest as shifts in the ground echoed with an unrelenting ferocity. The chaos felt surreal, a dark tapestry interwoven with muted colors of fear and danger. Yet through that haze, the undeniable energy crackled between Alex and me, unpredictable and electrifying. Ivy, come on. My ex shouted again, desperation lacing his voice. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back, instinctively seeking the reassurance of the unknown rather than familiar ground. It wasn't just the explosion that fueled my resolve, it was the nagging feeling that something vital was at risk, something staring back at us through the smokescreen, staring into those dark eyes compelling me forward as they flickered with urgency. I pondered why Alex captivated me so deeply. There was an unspoken connection that flourished with every perilous moment, yet it felt precarious, teetering on the edge of revelation. Ivy, we can't stay here. My ex insisted, grounding his words in a plea meant to tether me to safety instead of chaos. We need to think rationally. Rationality has been torn apart along with this place. I shot back, the hurt creeping into my voice. Can't you see? There's more at stake here than our past or your need to shield me. Alex stepped forward, his expression softening, a puzzled frown dancing across his features. We need to navigate this, Ivy. Together, not apart. He nodded toward the hidden passage revealed by the falling debris, a promise of escape but also uncertainty. If we move now, we might be able to help those trapped. They need us. But just as I was about to make a choice, the world shifted again. The ground let out a deep groan, a warning too loud to ignore. Around us, people scrambled in panic, grasping for hope amid destruction. Voices were lost in the ferocity of fear, a striking contrast to the gentle resolution blooming between Alex and me. Look. The boy with the first aid kit stood at my side once more, breathless but determined. He pointed toward a couple struggling to free a small child from the wreckage. They need us, Ivy. Something shifted within me, inner strength emerging as the moment crystallized with timelines intertwining. I gazed at Alex and my ex, feeling their weight yet sensing that the growing tremor of courage transcended my fears. We will help them, I declared, defiance bursting forth like a rush of wind. We have to. In unison, we moved forward, an unspoken alliance forged in the flames of this destruction. Alex's hands were steady as we worked to lift debris, sweat beading on his forehead. The boy stood beside us, lending his strength, embodying the hope we all fought for. Just one more push, I exclaimed, adrenaline surging as the remnants slowly began to crumble away before us. Finally, we found the Childa little girl, her face streaked with dirt, wide eyes shimmering like shards of glass. Her fragile existence brought everything else into perspective. With careful hands, I cradled her as the parents rushed forward, tears streaming down their faces, gratitude lighting their expressions. But in that instant of joy, something pulled at the fringes of my mind, the fading shadows of my past, looming over the brilliance of this present. Suddenly look out! My ex roared, shoving me away from falling debris as it came crashing down in a flurry of chaos. I stumbled, adrenaline pumping, but just as quickly it was quiet again, the echo of shouts replaced by the stillness that gripped my heart. He knelt beside me, concern etched on his features. You need to be more careful. His hands were tentative, hesitant even, as he reached to touch my shoulder, the connection between us feeling strained, each touch weighed down by past memories and present turmoil, but as I caught Alex's gaze grounded and fiery, I felt the pull toward him, a tether binding us through the chaos, shimmering with potential. Yet even as warmth enveloped me, the flickering shadows whispered doubts, taunting me. With what I had yet to unravel, what are you not telling us? I turned to Alex, who was looking over his shoulder at the gathering storm of voices and emergency crews rushing toward us, their forms a blur amid the chaos. The truth, Alex. What's really happening? In that moment, he faced me fully, the weight of all we had experienced creeping into his expression. If you only knew, he began, but an earth-shaking blast reverberated through the air, interrupting him mid-sentence. A wave of panic surged through me as the ground cracked open once more. But this time it wasn't just debris, it was a fissure, gaping, widening between us and the surrounding chaos, and it felt as though we were being pulled into different worlds. Ivy. My ex shouted, urgency in his voice cutting through the chaos as he grasped my arm, panic etched deeply in his features. I can't let go, I cried, torn between running toward the engulfing darkness and the lingering pulls of uncertainty in my heart. I have to choose. Lightning flickered across the sky, some haunting presence whispering truths beyond my understanding, truths I needed to confront, shadows that had been lurking in the corners of my mind. With the ground trembling beneath our feet, the weight of my choices felt unbearable as I searched their faces, both masks of familiarity and uncertainty. That I had to choose. What if I chose wrong? What if embracing the unknown meant losing everything I clung to? But buried beneath that fear lay the chance to discover not just the truth of this calamity, but the depths of my own heart. As the world began to unravel, a glimmer of courage sparked. In that decisive moment, I knew that my next steps could either dismantle everything I believed or lead me deeper into something I never knew I was searching for. I inhaled sharply, preparing to leap, when a shocking revelation pierced the air. A figure emerging from the smoke, a face I hadn't expected but had yearned to see, shattering any notions I had of safety and clarity. Thank you for coming, Ivy, he said, the gravity of his voice a thunderous melody that echoed the heart of my conflict. I remained frozen in that moment, heartbreak and disbelief crashing around me like waves against a craggy shore. The figure emerged, pulling away the veil of smoke, revealing a face I had tried to forget and yet could never truly escape me. Father. The chaos swirling beneath the thunderous sky amplified his presence, the torrent of emotions boiling inside me struggling for dominance. Dad? My voice barely rose above a whisper, trembling as I struggled to comprehend every jagged piece of the long-avoided past. The man who had left my life as quietly as a fading shadow now stood before me. His disheveled hair and torn shirt betrayed a history I couldn't fathom at the moment, but there was no mistaking the sharp pain in those weathered eyes. Determination flickered as he stepped closer, and I felt a rush of conflicting emotions: rage, relief, disbelief. Ivy, please, this isn't what it seems, he said, his voice ragged yet sincere. You have to trust me. Trust. The word hung in the air, thick like smoke, intertwining memories of betrayal and abandonment. Trust? I blurted, the words dripping with disbelief. Where were you when I needed you? Where were you all those years? Each question erupted from my mouth like fire, fueled by the years of silence and unearthly abandonment. His face fell, an ocean of regret flooding his features. I've made mistakes, Ivy. I thought I was protecting you with that. I experienced the undeniable pull of the past, the fracture it had created in me, all those years of feeling lost. I glanced at my ex, who had moved closer, the weight of his presence reminding me of the path I had been on and the chaos that lay ahead. Do you understand what's happening? I shouted, turning sharply back to my father. Do you even know the mess you've caused? I do now, he murmured, the anguish etched all over his face like well-worn scars. But I was lost too, Ivy. I thought I could handle it all on my own. I was wrong. The ground shifted again, reminding me of the chaos, but within it, something else lurked. A flicker of warmth echoed from Alex, grounding me in that tumultuous eye of the storm. It was as if he, too, had suffered from abandonment. You don't get to just come back into my life and ask for my trust just because things got complicated. I deserve an explanation. I yelled, the desperation twisting with hope crashing into the walls I'd built around my heart. The silence hung heavily between us as thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, and then slowly, the coalescence of those pieces began to form, threading their way through the chaos that enveloped me. My father's face contorted, searching for a way to express his truth. The merger, Ivy, it's dangerous. The past is catching up to us, more than you realize. You need to get out now. But why should I trust you? The floodgates of emotion sprang open, words poured from my heart unfiltered. When you turned your back and chose to run away? The memory struck fierce and quick, left me at the mercy of the very darkness he spoke of. I didn't choose to leave you, Ivy, he implored, extending his hand tentatively as if reaching past brittle glass that might shatter at any moment. I thought I would come back. I thought it would be easy. An unexpected surge of connection thrummed between us as I saw the vulnerability in his eyes, but then I felt a reminder of what I had fought for, years spent carving my identity from the ashes he had left behind. Yet somehow, the urgencies of the present pulled me back into focus. This wasn't just about my father, this was about everyone tangled in this mess. A flicker of resolve surged within me. I turned to Alex, who stood next to me, heart beating steady like a metronome through the encroaching chaos. I could see it in Alex's eyes as he nodded toward the girl we'd just rescued. Her small hand clutched my shirt, fear evident in her wide gaze. I'd been given a purpose, a reason far beyond my own pain. Dad, I can't just walk away. I need to know the truth. For me, for others. My voice trembled but remained firm as I felt a roadmap begin to stitch itself across the landscape of my heart. This was my turn to reclaim the world that had been built in shadows. The air crackled with tension, and just as I felt the walls closing in as if the weight of our choices threatened to suffocate us, the boy with the first aid kit murmured softly, "But Ivy, what happens if the truth threatens everything you love?" The question hung unraveled in the air, a test of resolve weighing against the backdrop of impending danger, the intersection of past and present blurring in fractals as time stretched infinitely. I turned to my father, searching his face desperately, wishing for answers that felt so far away. In that breathless moment, I realized I didn't have to know everything to choose to move forward. I squeezed the girl's hand, my heart a compass pointing ever closer to hope, to the embrace of connection, to the warmth of possibility. We can't turn back now, I said, a surge of feeling welling deep inside me. I took a step forward. My ex hesitated but stepped beside me, his expression a storm of confusion but determined nonetheless, while Alex prepared to follow, ready to protect not just me, but the tapestry of lives entwined in this moment. Isn't it time to confront the past? I shouted to my father, whose expression softened at my words. To make a choice that reflects who we truly are. There was silence, pregnant with a promise that everything was still possible. He took a deep breath, and the world held its breath with him. Yes, he said finally, raw and vulnerable. Let's be honest for each other. The ground beneath trembled with the lingering uncertainty, but I felt clarity begin to crystallize. This was my decision to make. I was no longer a little girl waiting for a father, I was a woman ready to confront the chaos at hand, holding my fractured heart and voicing my truths, and as the storm festered and swirled around us, roaring with the pain of past choices, I breathed deep and held my head high, letting the winds of change sweep over me. Together, I murmured softly, locking eyes with all three, the fragile hope woven into every strand that surrounded us in that moment. And as the sirens faded into the background, I finally felt ready to step forward into whatever awaited us on the path to finding my truth and healing. That it was time to write the last chapter of an unfinished story, and with my heart wide open, I stepped into the storm, ready to face the light in the aftermath.